The rain hammered against the tall windows of Celestine, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants, where a single reservation could cost more than most people earned in a month, the kind of place where silence was expensive and questions were never asked. Maya Chen wiped down the marble bar for the third time that hour, her reflection distorted in the polished surface. 23 years old, barely 3 months into the job, she'd already learned the most important rule: see everything, remember nothing. "Table 7 needs another bottle of the Chateau Margaux," whispered Dennis, the head waiter, his voice barely audible over the soft jazz playing through hidden speakers. His eyes darted toward the corner booth, then quickly away. "And Maya, don't stare, just serve and leave." She nodded, grabbing the wine from the temperature-controlled cabinet. Her hands trembled slightly as she approached table 7. The man sitting there was different from the usual clientele. Most of Celestine's patrons wore their wealth like armor. Loud watches, designer suits that screamed their price tags. This man wore power like a second skin. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, no labels visible. No jewelry except a simple wedding band that looked older than Maya herself. His silver hair was combed back, revealing a face that could have been 50 or 70. Time had touched him, but cautiously. "Your wine, sir," Maya said softly, keeping her eyes on the bottle as she poured. "You're new." It wasn't a question. His voice was smooth, cultured, with the faintest trace of an accent she couldn't quite place. "European, maybe. Old world." 3 months, sir." "And before Celestine?" Maya's throat tightened. She hated this question. "I worked at a translation agency. Administrative work." It wasn't entirely a lie. She had worked there, though calling her role administrative was generous. She'd been fired for reasons she still didn't fully understand. Something about missing files and questions she couldn't answer. The man's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. Translation, how fortuitous. Oh. He reached into his jacket. Maya's entire body tensed and withdrew a manila envelope. Old-fashioned, the kind nobody used anymore. He placed it on the table between them, with the deliberate care of someone handling a live grenade. "I have a proposition for you, Miss Chen." Her blood went cold. She hadn't told him her last name. The nameplate on her uniform only said Maya. "Sir, I should... $10 million. He said it the way someone might comment on the weather. "For 1 hour of your time. Perhaps less." The restaurant seemed to fade away. The soft conversations at other tables became white noise. $10 million. That was more money than her parents had earned in their entire lives combined. More than she could imagine earning in 10 lifetimes serving overpriced wine to people who barely noticed she existed. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Inside this envelope is a document. Very old, very important. It's written in a language that has become inconvenient for me to read myself. I need it translated. Accurately. Completely. And most importantly..." His eyes locked onto hers and she saw something ancient and terrible swimming in their depths. Discreetly, Maya's mind raced. $10 million. She could pay off her parents' medical debt. Her father's cancer treatments had drained everything, left them drowning. She could go back to school, finish her linguistics degree. She could disappear, start over somewhere far from this city where every corner held a memory of failure. "What language?" she asked, though some instinct screamed at her to walk away. "You'll know it when you see it." He slid the envelope across the table. "Take it home, read it, translate it. Bring it back tomorrow night, same time. Then the money is yours, and we never speak again. And if I refuse, then you continue serving wine, wondering what might have been. No harm, no foul, as they say." But something in his tone suggested that refusing wasn't really an option, that the moment she'd approached this table, some invisible contract had been signed. Maya picked up the envelope. It was heavier than it should have been, as if the paper inside had weight beyond its physical form. The manila was soft with age, the metal clasp tarnished. She could feel eyes on her from across the restaurant, Dennis watching with barely concealed horror, other patrons pretending not to notice but tracking every movement. "Tomorrow night," the man said. "Same table. And Miss Chen?" He took a slow sip of his wine. "Don't open it here, don't show anyone, don't make copies, just translate it. Those are the only rules." She nodded, tucking the envelope into her apron. Her shift wasn't over for another 2 hours, but those 2 hours felt like 2 years. Every time she moved, she was conscious of the envelope's presence, its weight pulling at her like gravity. Dennis avoided her eyes. The kitchen staff went quiet when she passed. Even the dishwasher, old Carlos, who'd worked at Celestine for 20 years and had seen everything, crossed himself when he thought she wasn't looking. At midnight, when the last patron finally left and the lights dimmed, Maya changed in the staff room with shaking hands. The envelope sat in her locker, seeming to pulse with malevolent energy. She'd convinced herself 3 times to leave it there, to walk away, to pretend this night had never happened. But $10 million. Her father's face, gray with pain, haunted her. Her mother's exhausted eyes. The eviction notice on their apartment door. She grabbed the envelope. The subway ride to her studio apartment in Queens was a blur. The Q train at midnight was its own kind of purgatory. Too bright, too empty. Every passenger a potential threat. Maya clutched her bag close, feeling the envelope inside like a living thing. A drunk man stumbled down the aisle and she tensed, but he passed by without incident. At Court Square, a woman in a business suit got on, took one look at Maya and moved to the far end of the car. Could people see it? Could they sense what she was carrying? Her apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that had seen better decades. The hallway smelled of cooking oil and disappointment. Maya's hands fumbled with her keys, dropping them twice before finally getting the door open. The studio was tiny. A bed, a desk, a kitchenette that was more theoretical than functional, but it was hers. Or it would be, for 3 more weeks until the rent came due again. She locked the door, drew the curtains, turned on every light. Then, with trembling fingers, she opened the envelope. The paper inside was old. Really old. Parchment, maybe, though Maya was no expert. The edges were brown with age. The surface covered in careful handwriting in dark ink that had faded to a rusty brown. And the language. Her breath caught. She knew it. Of course she knew it. It was why she'd been hired at the translation agency. Why she'd spent 4 years studying something most people had never heard of. Old Church Slavonic. A language that had been dead for centuries, used now only by scholars in certain Orthodox churches. Her grandmother had taught her, had insisted she learn their heritage, had made her memorize prayers and poems in a tongue that belonged to another world. But why would a man like that, in a restaurant like Celestine, need something translated from Old Church Slavonic? Maya sat at her desk, pulled out a notebook, and began to read. The handwriting was cramped, difficult, clearly written by someone in a hurry or under stress. The first few lines were innocuous enough. A date, 1987, she thought, though the notation was odd. A location, somewhere in New Jersey. The name meant nothing to her. And then, names. The document was a confession, or maybe an account. She wasn't entirely sure, but it detailed in careful, methodical language the death of 4 people, how they'd been killed, where they'd been buried, and who had ordered it. At the bottom, written in a slightly different hand, as if added later, was a single line that made Maya's blood turn to ice. My true name is Mikhail Konstantin Volkov. I write this so God may judge me when men cannot. She looked at the signature, the same cramped handwriting, and beneath it, a fingerprint in what looked like blood. Maya pushed back from the desk so hard her chair toppled over. The paper fluttered to the floor. For a long moment she couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Mikhail Volkov. She'd heard that name before. Everyone in New York had heard that name. He was a ghost story, a legend, a boogeyman that mothers invoked to scare children into behaving. The Soviet emigre who'd built an empire on blood and fear in the 80s and 90s, who'd disappeared 20 years ago, presumed dead or fled. The man at table 7. He wasn't hiring her to translate this document. He was testing her, or threatening her, or both. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. How's the translation coming? Maya stared at the message, her hands numb. She hadn't given him her number. She'd barely spoken to him. But of course he had it. He had everything. Take your time. Another message appeared. But not too much time. Tomorrow night, remember. And Miss Chen? Sleep well. Or don't. Either way, I'll see you soon. The phone went dark. Outside her window, the city hummed with its usual midnight symphony. Sirens, voices, the rumble of traffic. Normal sounds. A normal night. Except nothing would ever be normal again. Maya picked up the document with shaking hands and began to translate. Because what else could she do? The words flowed from Old Church Slavonic to English, each sentence a nail in someone's coffin. Maybe hers, maybe his, maybe everyone's. By 3 a.m. she had the full translation. 4 murders. Names, dates, methods. And at the bottom, that confession, that signature, that fingerprint. $10 million, she thought. The price for reading a dead man's confession. Except the dead man was sitting in Celestine, drinking expensive wine, waiting for her to deliver his own death warrant. She didn't sleep. How could she? Dawn broke over Queens like a wound, bleeding orange and red across the skyline. Maya hadn't moved from her desk. The translation sat before her. 4 pages of neat handwriting that documented the systematic execution of 4 people whose names she now knew by heart. Viktor Fedorov, Alexei Rudin, Tatiana Volkova, Dmitry Sokolov. The document described how they died. Bullets mostly, but Tatiana had been different. Slower. The confession didn't specify why, only that it had been necessary for the truth. Maya's coffee had gone cold hours ago. Her eyes burned. Every time she closed them, she saw that fingerprint at the bottom of the page. Brown and ancient. A ghost's signature in blood. She'd tried to convince herself it was ink, oxidized over time, but she knew better. Some truths announced themselves. Her phone sat silent on the desk. No more messages from the unknown number, but she felt watched anyway. The curtains were still drawn, but morning light leaked through the edges, illuminating dust motes that danced like tiny spirits. She thought about her father in his hospital bed, tubes snaking into his arms, his skin the color of old paper. $10 million would save him, would save all of them. But what was the cost of money earned from reading a confession of murder? At 7 a.m., her phone rang. Not a text this time, an actual call. Maya stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Miss Chen, that smooth voice, somehow even more unsettling over the phone. I trust you had an educational evening. I translated it. Her voice came out hoarse, raw from disuse. Excellent. Then you understand the nature of our arrangement. I understand that you killed 4 people in 1987. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Stupid. So incredibly stupid. You don't accuse men like Mikhail Volkov of murder. You don't even think it too loudly. Silence on the other end. Long enough that Maya wondered if he'd hung up. Then, a sound that might have been a laugh or a sigh. You're direct. I appreciate that. It's rare in my world. People usually dance around the truth like it might bite them. But you, Miss Chen, you grab it with both hands. Why? Maya asked. Why give me this? Why not just burn it, destroy it? Why translate it at all? Because I'm dying. Simple. Matter of fact. Like announcing the weather. Cancer. Pancreatic. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. And when I'm gone, certain people will find certain things. This document is insurance. A confession that proves I acted alone. That protects people who need protecting. From who? From themselves. From consequences. From the past. He paused. The 10 million isn't payment for translation, Miss Chen. It's payment for your discretion. You read what's on that paper, you translate it exactly as written, you give it to me tonight, and then you forget it ever existed. You forget me. You forget everything. That's the transaction. Maya's hand tightened on the phone. And if I go to the police? Then you'll discover that confessions written in dead languages by dead men carry very little weight in court, especially when the only witness is a hostess with a criminal record. Her blood went cold. I don't have a criminal record. Not yet, but it's surprisingly easy to acquire one. Evidence can be planted, digital footprints fabricated. You'd be amazed what $10,000 can buy in the right precincts, or, his voice softened, became almost gentle. You could take the 10 million, help your father, finish your degree, and live a long, comfortable life. The choice seems obvious to me. That's blackmail. No, Miss Chen. Blackmail would be threatening to harm your family if you don't comply. I'm simply explaining reality. You've read something you shouldn't have. Now there are only 2 paths forward, prosperity or ruin. I'm offering prosperity. Most people in your position don't get that option. The line went dead. Maya sat frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Outside, the city was waking up. Car horns, construction noise, the perpetual soundtrack of New York grinding forward. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that in a 4th-floor walk-up in Queens, a woman held evidence of murder and the confession of a dying monster. She looked at the translation again. 4 names, 4 lives ended, and at the bottom, that signature, Mikhail Konstantin Volkov. His true name, he'd written, the name he'd been born with, before he became whatever he was now, before he became the ghost in the expensive suit. A thought struck her. If this was his true name, what name did everyone else know him by? Maya opened her laptop, ancient, held together with tape and prayers, and typed Mikhail Volkov, New York, into Google. The search returned thousands of results, but they all said the same thing. Disappeared in 2003, presumed dead, former Soviet intelligence officer turned crime boss, suspected of ordering dozens of murders but never convicted of anything. But there was no photo. Every article mentioned him but none showed his face. It was as if he'd been professionally erased from visual history. She tried Celestine restaurant owner instead. That brought up articles about the restaurant's opening in 2005, its Michelin stars, its exclusive clientele. And there, in a photo from the grand opening, standing in the background, barely visible, a man in a black suit with silver hair. The caption identified him as Michael Winters, principal investor. Michael Winters, Mikhail Volkov, the same man, hiding in plain sight for 20 years, running a restaurant where New York's elite came to see and be seen, while his past decomposed in a confession written in a language almost nobody could read, except Maya could read it. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Dad's asking for you. Can you visit today?" The hospital. Her father. The reason she'd taken the job at Celestine in the first place. Good tips. Better than the translation agency. Better than anything else she was qualified for. She texted back. "After work. Tell him I love him." Work. She had to go to work. Had to face Mikhail Volkov, Michael Winters, whoever he was, and pretend everything was normal. Had to serve wine and smile and act like she hadn't spent the night reading his confession to quadruple homicide. Maya showered, the hot water doing nothing to wash away the feeling of contamination. She dressed in her Celestine uniform. Black slacks, white shirt, black vest. Professional. Invisible. The uniform of someone who existed only to serve. She packed the translation carefully in the manila envelope, slipped it into her bag. The original document she left hidden in her desk drawer, beneath old bills and forgotten letters. If something happened to her, maybe someone would find it. Maybe it would matter. The subway ride to Manhattan felt different in daylight. The train was packed with morning commuters, everyone lost in their phones or their thoughts. Maya stood pressed against the door, clutching her bag, wondering if any of these people had ever been offered $10 million to forget something. Probably not. Most people's secrets were smaller: affairs, embezzlement, tax fraud, everyday crimes, not murder. At 42nd Street, she changed to the N train. A man in a business suit got on, took the seat across from her, and immediately pulled out a newspaper. Physical paper, like he'd time-traveled from 1995. He glanced at Maya over the top, just once, then returned to his reading. Paranoia, she told herself. He's just a guy reading a newspaper. Not everyone is watching you. But when she got off at Lexington, he got off too. When she turned left, he turned left. When she stopped to tie her shoe, a test, obvious and stupid, he stopped to check his phone. Maya's heart hammered. She was being followed. Actually, genuinely followed. By a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a corporate training video. Forgettable face, forgettable clothes. The kind of person who could stand next to you on a train and vanish from memory the moment he left. She walked faster. The lunch shift at Celestine didn't start until 11, but she could get there early, hide in the safety of the restaurant, surrounded by staff and cameras and witnesses. The man kept pace, never closer than 20 feet, never farther than 30. Professional, practiced. At Park Avenue, Maya broke into a run. The man didn't chase her. He didn't need to. He just stood on the corner watching as she sprinted the last 2 blocks to Celestine. She burst through the service entrance, gasping, and nearly collided with Dennis. "Maya, you're early. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," she managed. "Just needed to get here." Dennis studied her face, concerned. He was 10 years older than Maya, gay, perpetually exhausted from dealing with demanding patrons, but kind. One of the few genuinely kind people she'd met in this city. "If something's wrong, you can tell me. Is it money? Family stuff? Because the staff fund might be able to." "I'm fine," Maya repeated. "Really, just a weird morning." He didn't believe her. She could see it in his eyes. But he nodded anyway because that was the Celestine way. See everything, say nothing. "Table 7 has a reservation for tonight, 8 p.m. Same gentleman as yesterday." "Of course." Table 7. Mikhail Volkov waiting for his confession. The lunch shift passed in a blur. Maya moved on autopilot, serving food she didn't taste, pouring wine she didn't see, smiling at people whose faces blurred together. Every time the front door opened, she tensed. Every time someone in a suit entered, she wondered if they were watching her, reporting back to Volkov, making sure she didn't run. At 3 p.m., during the lull between lunch and dinner, she hid in the walk-in cooler. The cold was shocking, painful but real. It cut through the fog of fear and exhaustion. She pressed her back against the metal shelving and tried to think. Options. She could go to the police. But Volkov was right. What proof did she have? A document in a dead language that could have been forged. A confession without a body, without physical evidence. And if she went to the police, what would stop Volkov from planting evidence against her? From destroying her family? She could run, take the original document and disappear. But where? And with what money? She had maybe $300 in her bank account. Not enough to start over. Not enough to save her father. Or she could do exactly what Volkov wanted. Translate the document, take the money, and forget. The cooler door opened. Dennis poked his head in. "Maya, you can't hide in here all day. Chef's getting suspicious." "Sorry, just needed a minute." "The thing about minutes," Dennis said quietly, stepping inside and letting the door close behind them, "is that sometimes they turn into hours, days, lifetimes of hiding from whatever we're running from." He looked at her with unexpected intensity. "I've worked here 8 years. I've seen people like the gentleman at table 7 come and go, and I've seen what happens to staff who get involved in their business. If you're in trouble, real trouble, you need to get out. Now. Today. Don't wait for tonight." "I can't," Maya whispered. "My father will understand if you're alive to explain it to him." Dennis pulled a business card from his pocket. "This is my cousin. She's a lawyer. Immigration mostly, but she knows people. If you need help, real help, call her. Don't wait. Don't think you can handle this alone." He pressed the card into her hand and left, the cooler door swinging shut with a soft click. Maya stared at the card. Jennifer Kim, attorney at law, a phone number, an address in Koreatown, a lifeline maybe, or just another person who'd get pulled into the vortex of Mikhail Volkov's dying confessions. The dinner shift began at 5. Maya changed into a fresh uniform, touched up her makeup, tried to look like someone who hadn't spent the day contemplating moral calculus and murder. The restaurant filled slowly. Politicians, celebrities, the kind of people whose presence was announced by the sudden tension of the staff. At 7:45, Maya was polishing wine glasses behind the bar when the front door opened. Mikhail Volkov entered like he owned the place, which technically he did. Michael Winters, principal investor, the man who'd built Celestine as a temple to his own reinvention. He wore a different suit tonight, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and moved with the careful deliberation of someone managing pain. "Dying," he'd said. 6 months, maybe less. Their eyes met across the restaurant. He smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes, and walked toward table 7. Dennis appeared at Maya's elbow. "You don't have to do this, whatever this is." "Yes," Maya said softly. "I do." She picked up the envelope from where she'd hidden it beneath the bar. Her hands didn't shake. That surprised her. She'd thought they would, thought she'd tremble and falter and drop it. But her hands were steady as stone. Maya walked across the restaurant floor, past tables of people eating meals that cost more than her monthly rent, past waiters who pretended not to watch, past the point of no return. She placed the envelope on table 7. Mikhail Volkov, Michael Winters. The man with 2 names and 4 murders looked up at her with ancient eyes. "Thank you, Miss Chen. Please sit. We have business to conclude." Maya hesitated. Sitting with a patron was strictly forbidden at Celestine. Staff remained invisible, professional, separate. But Dennis was watching from across the room, his face tight with worry. And she knew if she refused, if she walked away now, there would be consequences. Not from the restaurant, from the man whose confession she carried. She sat. Up close, Volkov looked older than he had the previous night. The restaurant's dim lighting had been kind, but here, barely 3 feet away, she could see the gray pallor beneath his tan, the slight tremor in his hands, the way his expensive suit hung just a fraction too loose on his frame. Dying. The word echoed in her mind. This man was dying, and somehow that made him more dangerous, not less. People with nothing to lose were capable of anything. "You did excellent work," he said, opening the envelope with deliberate care. He scanned the pages, her neat handwriting translating his cramped confession, and nodded. "Very precise. Very accurate. You have a gift for languages, Miss Chen. It's just a skill. Anyone who studied Old Church Slavonic could have done it. But how many people in New York City have studied Old Church Slavonic?" His smile was thin, reptilian. 3, perhaps? 4? And of those, how many work in restaurants I own? You see, Miss Chen, fate is a curious thing. Some might call this coincidence, I call it providence. A waiter approached. Not Dennis, one of the younger ones, barely out of high school, and Volkov waved him away with a gesture that brooked no argument. The boy retreated so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. "You're scaring the staff," Maya said. "I scare everyone. It's exhausting, honestly. Do you know what it's like to walk into a room and watch people's faces change? To see fear replace whatever expression they were wearing a moment before? For 20 years, I've been Michael Winters, respectable businessman, patron of the arts, generous donor to children's hospitals. And still, people sense something, some instinct that whispers danger when I approach." He poured wine, a bottle Maya hadn't seen him order, into 2 glasses. "It's genetic, I think. Or perhaps learned behavior so deeply ingrained it becomes genetic. My grandfather was NKVD, my father KGB. Violence is my inheritance." Maya didn't touch the wine. "The people in the confession. The 4 names. Why did they die? Does it matter?" "Yes." Volkov studied her for a long moment, then leaned back in his chair. Outside the windows, Manhattan sparkled with a million lights. Each one a life, a story, a person who would never know they were dining 50 feet away from a man who'd killed 4 people and was now casually discussing it over wine. Viktor Fedorov was stealing from me. Small amounts at first, then larger. He thought I wouldn't notice. I noticed everything. Volkov's voice was matter-of-fact, discussing theft the way someone might discuss a disappointing restaurant review. Alexei Rudin was his partner. They'd planned to disappear together, start over in California. Young love. Tragic, really. And Tatiana Volkova? Something flickered across his face. Not quite emotion, but its shadow. My wife. Former wife. She'd decided to cooperate with the FBI. Would have testified against me in exchange for witness protection. She knew everything. Bank accounts, safe houses, the names of everyone I'd ever worked with. Her testimony would have destroyed not just me, but dozens of families. People who depended on the structure I'd built. "So you killed her." "So I eliminated a threat." He said it without inflection. "There's a difference, Miss Chen, between killing and eliminating. One is emotional, the other is tactical. And Dmitry Sokolov? A friend. My best friend, if I'm being honest. He helped me with the others, drove the car, disposed of evidence, but he was weak. Started drinking, talking in bars about things that should never be spoken aloud. I gave him chances. 3 of them. He wasted all 3. Volkov sipped his wine. His death was the hardest, not because I loved him, though I did, but because it was inefficient. Good help is difficult to replace. Maya felt sick. He was talking about murder like it was a business problem, a logistics issue. 4 people dead, and he showed less emotion than someone discussing a failed marketing campaign. "Why confess?" she asked. "Why write it down at all?" "Because in 1987 I thought I was going to die. Not from cancer, from a turf war with the Italians. Every day for 6 months I waited for the bullet, checked under my car for bombs, slept with a gun, and I realized that if I died, if they killed me, certain people would be blamed, people who were innocent. The confession was insurance, proof that I acted alone, that no one ordered the hits, that the blood was on my hands and no one else's. But you didn't die. No, I made peace with the Italians. Bought this restaurant, actually, as part of the agreement, a neutral ground where both sides could meet without fear. And I kept the confession hidden, because insurance is only valuable if you keep paying the premium." He withdrew an envelope from his jacket. Different from the manila one, this was cream-colored, expensive stationery. "Your payment, Miss Chen. $10 million as promised. The account information is inside. Wire transfer completely untraceable. Routed through 3 banks in countries that don't cooperate with American law enforcement. By morning, the money will be yours." Maya stared at the envelope. It was smaller than she'd expected. Thinner. $10 million reduced to a few pieces of paper. "There's a condition," Volkov continued. "Of course there's a condition. You will not speak of this to anyone. Not the police, not lawyers, not friends or family. You will not write about it, blog about it, post about it on social media. You will take the money, help your father, yes, I know about the cancer, the medical bills, and you will forget this ever happened. If you break this agreement, if you speak one word of what you've read or translated, the money disappears, and so do you. You'd kill me. I wouldn't have to. The people whose names are in that confession, the people I'm protecting, they have resources that make me look like a street thug. They have reach, influence. They could end you so completely that it would be as if you never existed." He pushed the cream envelope across the table. "Or you could take the money and live. Really live. Finish your degree. Travel. Fall in love. have children, all the normal things that normal people do. The choice is yours. Maya's hand hovered over the envelope. $10 million. Her father's life, her future, everything she'd ever wanted. The price was silence. She picked it up. Volkov smiled, genuine this time. Smart girl. I knew you would be. You have survivor's instinct. It's rare, precious. Most people freeze when confronted with impossible choices. They dither and doubt and ultimately make no choice at all, which is itself a choice, just the worst possible one. But you, Miss Chen, you understand that survival sometimes means compromising with devils. I'm not like you. Not yet, but give it time. Compromises have a way of adding up. You start by translating a confession, then you take the money, then you spend it. Each step seems reasonable in isolation, but together, they build a path. And one day you wake up and realize you've walked so far down that path that you can't see where it started anymore. He stood, buttoning his jacket. Enjoy your evening, Miss Chen, and your new life. You've earned it. He walked away, taking the manila envelope with him. The confession, the evidence. 4 murders reduced to paper and ink, now back in the hands of the man who'd committed them. Maya sat frozen at table 7, the cream envelope burning in her hands. Around her, Celestine continued its evening service. Plates delivered, wine poured, conversations humming with the false intimacy of the very rich. No one looked at her. No one noticed. Dennis appeared at her elbow. Maya, are you okay? I need to go. Her voice sounded distant, not quite her own. I need to leave. Now. Your shift isn't over. I need to go. She stood abruptly, the envelope clutched to her chest. Tell them I'm sick. Tell them anything. I can't be here. She ran. Through the restaurant, past the kitchen, out the service entrance into the alley behind Celestine. The November air was cold, sharp, cutting through her uniform. She leaned against the brick wall, breathing hard, trying not to throw up. The envelope. She'd taken the envelope. She'd accepted the money. She'd made the deal. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Wise choice, Miss Chen. Your father's treatment begins tomorrow. I've taken the liberty of paying his medical bills in full. Consider it a signing bonus. Maya's legs gave out. She slid down the wall, sitting on the dirty alley pavement, surrounded by dumpsters and discarded dreams. He'd paid her father's bills, before she'd even accepted the money, before she'd made the choice. Because there had never been a choice. Volkov had bought her the moment she'd opened that manila envelope. She looked at the cream envelope in her hands. Inside would be account numbers, routing codes, instructions. $10 million. Enough to change everything. Enough to buy silence. Maya opened it, but inside wasn't banking information. Inside was a photograph, black and white, grainy with age. 5 people standing in what looked like a warehouse. She recognized 2 of them immediately. Young Viktor Fedorov and Alexei Rudin, barely 20 years old, their faces unlined and hopeful. And there, standing between them with his arms around their shoulders, was Mikhail Volkov. Younger, harder, his eyes already carrying the weight of violence. But it was the other 2 people in the photograph that made Maya's blood turn to ice. On the far left, a woman. Beautiful, dark-haired, wearing a dress that screamed 1980s. Tatiana Volkova, she assumed. Volkov's wife, the one he'd killed for threatening to testify. And on the far right, holding Tatiana's hand, was a little girl, maybe 5 years old. Dark hair like her mother, but with her father's intense eyes. She was smiling. The only person in the photograph who looked genuinely happy. There was writing on the back of the photograph. Maya turned it over with shaking hands. Brooklyn, 1982. Family. And below that, in different handwriting, more recent, she survived. She doesn't know. Keep it that way. Maya's mind raced. Volkov had a daughter. Tatiana had been pregnant, or they'd already had a child when he killed her. And the daughter survived. Was alive. Somewhere in New York, probably. Living a normal life, unaware that her father was a murderer who'd killed her mother. She turned the photograph over again, studying the little girl's face, the smile, the innocence, and felt something crack open inside her chest. This was the real payment. Not the money, the photograph, the knowledge, the burden of knowing that somewhere out there was a woman, mid-40s now probably, whose entire life was built on a lie. Her phone buzzed again. The banking information is being delivered to your apartment as we speak. But I wanted you to understand something first. The confession protects more than just me. It protects her. If the truth comes out, if people learn what really happened in 1987, she becomes a target. The families of the people I killed, the organizations who want revenge, they'll find her, use her, hurt her. Your silence doesn't just buy you money, Miss Chen. It buys her life. Maya stared at the message until her eyes burned. Another text appeared. Her name is Sarah. She's a teacher. Elementary school in Brooklyn. Married. 2 children. Happy. She has no idea who her father is. Let's keep it that way. The photograph suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Maya tried to imagine the little girl grown up. Sarah, teaching children, living a normal life. Tried to imagine what it would do to her to learn the truth. That her father was a monster. That her mother had been murdered. That her entire existence was built on blood and lies. And she realized, with creeping horror, that Volkov had been right. This wasn't about money. This had never been about money. It was about leverage. About making Maya complicit. About ensuring her silence not through threats but through guilt. If she went to the police, Sarah's life would be destroyed. If she kept quiet, she'd have to live with the knowledge that a murderer walked free. There was no right answer. No moral high ground. Just 2 terrible choices and a photograph of a smiling child. Dennis found her 20 minutes later, still sitting in the alley, the photograph clutched in her hands. He sat down next to her without a word, his expensive waiter's shoes getting dirty on the pavement. Whatever he gave you, Dennis said quietly, whatever he offered you, it's not worth it. I've seen this before, Maya. People who get involved with men like him, they don't come back the same. Sometimes they don't come back at all. He paid my father's medical bills. Then your father survives his cancer only to watch his daughter destroy herself. Is that what you want? Maya looked at the photograph, at little Sarah, smiling in 1982, unaware that her world was about to end, at Tatiana, holding her daughter's hand, with maybe days or weeks left to live, at Volkov, young and already corrupted, his arm around the men he would eventually kill. I don't know what I want, she whispered. Then figure it out. Fast. Because men like him, they don't give gifts. They make investments. And eventually, they expect returns. Dennis stood, offered her his hand. Maya took it, let him pull her to her feet. The photograph went back into the envelope. The envelope went into her bag. The weight of knowledge pressed down on her shoulders like gravity. Go home, Dennis said. Sleep. Think. And tomorrow, if you decide you need help, call my cousin. Jennifer can protect you. She's protected people from worse than him. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She walked out of the alley onto the street, into the flow of Manhattan nightlife. People everywhere, laughing, drinking, living their uncomplicated lives. She envied them, envied their ignorance. The subway ride home was a blur. The man who'd followed her that morning was gone, but she felt watched anyway. Cameras, eyes. The city itself seemed to be tracking her, reporting back to Volkov. Her apartment looked the same as she'd left it, but felt different, contaminated. On her desk was another envelope, thick, official-looking. She opened it with numb fingers. Banking information, account numbers in the Cayman Islands, $10 million waiting. All she had to do was wire transfer it to her own account and it was hers. Free and clear, untraceable. All she had to do was stay silent. Maya sat at her desk, the photograph of Sarah on one side, the banking information on the other. 2 envelopes, 2 futures, 2 versions of herself she could become. The woman who took the money and stayed quiet, or the woman who destroyed an innocent person's life to bring a dying man to justice. Outside her window, the city hummed with its midnight symphony. Somewhere in Brooklyn, Sarah was probably sleeping, unaware that her entire world hung in the balance, unaware that a hostess named Maya Chen held her fate in tired hands. Maya picked up her phone, pulled up the business card Dennis had given her. Jennifer Kim, attorney at law. Her finger hovered over the call button. Maya didn't call Jennifer Kim. Not that night. Instead, she sat at her desk until dawn, the photograph of young Sarah burning into her retinas like an afterimage. At some point, she'd opened her laptop and started searching. Cautiously at first, then with growing desperation. Sarah Winters, the name Volkov had given her. Elementary school teacher in Brooklyn. There were dozens of Sarah Winters in New York, but only one who taught at PS 321 in Park Slope, only one whose age matched the timeline. Maya found her on the school's website, a faculty photo that was probably 5 years old, slightly pixelated. The resemblance was unmistakable. Those same intense eyes, Volkov's eyes, staring out from a woman's face that held her mother's delicate bone structure. She was smiling in the photo, professional and warm, the kind of teacher parents requested for their children. Maya clicked deeper, found a wedding announcement from 2015, Sarah Winters and Marcus Thompson, married at the Brooklyn Botanical Garden. The photo showed Sarah in a simple white dress, her husband tall and gentle-looking, both of them radiating the kind of uncomplicated happiness that seemed impossible now. The article mentioned Sarah's father had passed away when she was young. A lie, obviously. Volkov had crafted an entire false history for his daughter. Further searching revealed Sarah's Instagram, public, thankfully. Photos of her classroom, colorful bulletin boards covered in children's artwork. Pictures of her two kids, faces carefully obscured for privacy, at playgrounds and birthday parties. A post from 3 weeks ago, grateful for another year around the sun, 43 and feeling blessed. The comments were full of heart emojis and birthday wishes from friends who had no idea they were celebrating the daughter of a murderer. Maya slammed the laptop shut. This was stalking. This was wrong. But she couldn't stop herself from reopening it, from clicking through Sarah's life like it was a television show, like these weren't real people who would be devastated if the truth emerged. At 7 a.m., Maya's phone rang. Her mother. Maya, did you get my message about visiting your father? She'd forgotten. Completely forgotten. Mom, he's asking for you. The new treatment starts today. The doctor said someone paid the entire bill. $30,000 just gone. Maya, did you do something? Because if you borrowed money from loan sharks or... I didn't borrow anything. It's complicated. I'll explain when I visit. You sound terrible. Did you sleep? Not really. Baby, you need to take care of yourself. I know the job is stressful, but I have to go, Mom. I'll visit tonight. I promise. She hung up before her mother could protest. $30,000. Volkov had paid it like it was pocket change, buying her compliance before she'd even agreed. And now her father would get treatment, would maybe survive because a murderer had decided to be generous. Maya showered, dressed, moved through her morning routine on autopilot. She had the day off from Celestine. Tuesdays were always slow, but the thought of staying in her apartment, alone with her thoughts and the photograph and the banking information, felt impossible. She needed to see Sarah. Not approach her, not speak to her, just see her, confirm she was real, that she existed beyond Instagram posts and old photographs, that the weight of knowledge pressing down on Maya's chest was about an actual human being, and not just an abstract moral dilemma. The subway to Brooklyn was packed with morning commuters. Maya stood pressed against the door, her bag clutched close, the photograph hidden in an inside pocket where it seemed to burn against her ribs. At Atlantic Avenue, she changed to the R train. At Union Street, she got off. Park Slope in November was beautiful in a melancholy way. Brownstones with their proud facades, trees dropping the last of their leaves, parents pushing strollers past boutique coffee shops. Wealthy, safe, the kind of neighborhood where bad things weren't supposed to happen. PS 321 was a brick building that had probably been standing for a century. A banner out front announced an upcoming winter concert. Children's artwork filled the windows, turkeys made of handprints, pilgrims, and Native Americans in historically questionable harmony. Maya stood across the street, partially hidden behind a tree, feeling like a creep. She was a creep, stalking an innocent woman because her father was a monster. At 8:45, a yellow school bus pulled up. Children poured out, backpacks bouncing, voices high and excited. And there, standing at the school entrance to greet them, was Sarah. She looked different from her photos. Older, obviously, but also more substantial, real. She wore jeans and a sweater covered in paint stains, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. As each child passed, she gave them her full attention. A high five here, a word of encouragement there. A little girl with glasses stopped to show her something in a book, and Sarah knelt down, genuinely interested, pointing at the pages and making the child laugh. This was Volkov's daughter. This kind, patient woman who spent her days teaching children to read and multiply and believe in their own potential. Her father had murdered 4 people, including her mother, and she had no idea. She thought her father was dead. She thought she was Sarah Winters, beloved teacher, devoted mother, regular person. The truth would destroy her. Maya felt it with absolute certainty. If she went to the police, if she exposed Volkov's confession, Sarah would be hounded by media. Her children would find out their grandfather was a killer. Her husband might leave. Her job, teaching children, would become impossible. The comfortable life she'd built would collapse like a house of cards, all because Maya Chen decided that justice mattered more than mercy. But 4 people were dead. Victor, Alexei, Tatiana, Dmitri. They had families too. People who'd spent decades wondering what happened, who'd buried empty caskets or never gotten closure. Didn't they deserve justice? Can I help you? Maya jumped. A woman had approached, older, maybe 60, wearing a school staff badge. She was smiling, but her eyes were watchful. Security probably, or a teacher who'd noticed someone lurking across the street from an elementary school. I'm sorry, I was just... Maya's mind went blank. I'm thinking of enrolling my daughter here, just wanted to see the neighborhood. It's a wonderful school, you should come inside, talk to the principal. She does tours on Thursdays. Thursday? Right, thank you. Maya backed away, nearly tripping over a crack in the sidewalk. I'll do that. She walked quickly, not quite running, back toward the subway. The woman watched her go, probably making a note of her description. Suspicious Asian woman, mid-20s, acting weird near the school. Maya imagined police being called. Security footage reviewed. Another layer of stupidity added to her growing collection. On the train back to Manhattan, Maya pulled out her phone and stared at Jennifer Kim's business card photo on the website Dennis had shown her. An attorney who specialized in witness protection and immigration cases. Someone who, according to Dennis, had helped people disappear from worse situations than this. But Maya didn't want to disappear. She wanted to understand. Wanted someone to tell her that there was a right answer, a path forward that didn't leave someone destroyed. She called Kim Law Associates, a receptionist, professional, and clipped. I need to speak with Jennifer Kim. It's urgent. Ms. Kim is with a client. Can I take a message? Tell her Dennis's cousin sent me. Tell her it's about. Maya hesitated. What was it about? Murder? Blackmail? Moral bankruptcy? Tell her it's complicated and I need help. I can schedule you for next week. Today, please. It has to be today. Something in Maya's voice must have conveyed genuine desperation. The receptionist paused. Hold on. Muzak filled the line. Maya closed her eyes, swaying with the movement of the train. Around her, people lived their normal lives, reading books, scrolling phones, sleeping with their heads against the window. She envied them, envied their problems, which were probably mundane and solvable. Rent, relationships, career stress, regular human concerns. Ms. Kim can see you at 2 p.m. The receptionist was back. Our office is in Koreatown, 32nd Street between 5th and Broadway, 3rd floor. Don't be late. Thank you. Thank you so much. Maya hung up. It was 10:30 a.m. She had 3.5 hours. She spent them walking. Up through Midtown, past the tourists and the street vendors and the perpetual construction, into Central Park, where she sat on a bench and watched dogs chase each other in the fallen leaves. Normal. Everything looked so painfully normal. At 1:45, she stood outside a nondescript building in Koreatown, the kind of place that housed dozens of small businesses, accountants, importers, translation services. Kim Law Associates was on the 3rd floor, up a narrow staircase that smelled of kimchi and cleaning solution. The office was small but tidy, a waiting room with chairs that had seen better years, magazines in Korean and English, a receptionist behind a glass partition who looked up when Maya entered. Maya Chen? Yes. ID, please. Maya handed over her driver's license. The receptionist scanned it, made a note in a computer, then buzzed her through to a small conference room. Ms. Kim will be with you shortly. The conference room had a table, 4 chairs, and a window overlooking 32nd Street. Maya sat facing the door, her bag on her lap, the photograph and banking information hidden inside like contraband, which she supposed they were. Jennifer Kim entered 10 minutes later. She was in her early 40s, wearing a suit that was expensive but not showy, her hair cut in a sharp bob. She carried a legal pad and a pen, nothing else. No laptop, no phone. She sat across from Maya and studied her with eyes that missed nothing. Dennis called me, she said. Told me you might be coming. Told me you were in trouble with someone dangerous. He told you that? He didn't have to. I've known Dennis since we were kids. He doesn't scare easily, but he was scared for you. Jennifer clicked her pen. So, tell me everything. Start from the beginning and don't leave anything out. This room is attorney-client privilege. Nothing you say leaves these walls unless you give me permission. Maya took a breath, then she told the story. The envelope, the translation, the confession. Mikhail Volkov, Michael Winters, the man with 2 names, the $10 million, the photograph of Sarah, all of it in a rushed tumble of words that left her breathless and slightly dizzy. Jennifer took notes, her pen moving steadily across the legal pad. She didn't interrupt, didn't gasp or express shock. When Maya finished, she set down her pen and leaned back in her chair. "Show me the photograph." Maya hesitated, then pulled it from her bag. Jennifer studied it for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "And the banking information?" "That too." Jennifer looked at the account numbers, the instructions, then set both documents on the table between them. "First question," Jennifer said. "Did you accept the money yet?" "No. I was supposed to transfer it last night, but I couldn't. I just couldn't." "Good. That gives us options." Second question. "Do you have the original confession? The document in Old Church Slavonic?" "Yes, it's in my apartment hidden." "Also good." Third question, and this is the important one. "What do you want? Justice for the 4 victims? Protection for the daughter to save yourself because you can't have all 3? This situation only has bad endings. I need to know which bad ending you prefer." Maya stared at her. "What would you do?" "I'm not the one who has to live with the decision, but I'll tell you what the law says. You're in possession of evidence of multiple murders. Technically, you have an obligation to report it. But you're also being coerced through financial incentive and implicit threats. A good lawyer, which I am, could argue you were under duress. The confession itself is problematic as evidence. It's old, written in a language most people can't verify, and there's no physical evidence linking it to actual crimes. Volkov could claim it's fiction, a creative writing exercise, and even if it's admissible, Volkov is dying. 6 months, you said? By the time a case goes to trial, he'll be dead. So what's the point of justice if the person you're seeking justice against won't live to see it? The families of the victims will get closure maybe, or they'll get media circuses and conspiracy theories and their dead relatives' names dragged through tabloids. And Sarah, Jennifer tapped the photograph. Sarah gets her life destroyed. Her children get to grow up knowing Grandpa murdered Grandma. That's the trade. 4 families get closure. 1 family gets devastation. So I should just take the money? Stay quiet? I didn't say that. Jennifer leaned forward. I'm laying out reality. What you do with that reality is your choice. But understand this. The moment you make your decision, there's no going back. If you take the money, you're complicit. If you go to the police, you're a whistleblower whose life will never be the same. And if you try to do nothing, try to ignore both options, someone will force your hand. Probably Volkov. Men like him don't leave loose ends. Maya felt tears burning in her eyes. I just wanted to help my father, that's all. I just wanted to pay his medical bills. I know. Jennifer's voice softened. But we don't get to choose our moral dilemmas, they choose us. And now you're stuck with one that has no right answer. She pulled out a business card, her personal cell number written on the back. Go home. Think. You have maybe 48 hours before Volkov expects a decision. If you decide to go to the police, call me first. I'll come with you, make sure they don't railroad you. If you decide to take the money, call me anyway. I'll help you set up protections, make sure the funds are clean. And if you decide to do something else entirely, something I haven't thought of, call me. Don't face this alone. Maya took the card. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Dennis is family, that makes you family by extension. And Jennifer smiled without humor. I don't like men who think they can buy people, even if technically that's how the world works most of the time. It offends my sense of justice. They stood. Jennifer walked Maya to the door, her hand briefly touching Maya's shoulder. Whatever you decide, decide quickly. Indecision is its own kind of decision, and usually the worst one. Maya left the office in a daze. The street outside looked different, sharper, more vivid, like she'd been seeing the world through fog and someone had suddenly cleared it. She had 48 hours, 2 days to choose between terrible options. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hear you visited my daughter's school this morning. Careless, Miss Chen. Very careless. Someone might think you're planning something unwise. Maya's blood turned to ice. He knew. Of course he knew. He'd probably been having her followed since the moment she left Celestine. Every move tracked, every decision monitored. Another text appeared. Visit your father tonight. See the treatment working. See what your silence bought him. Then decide if justice for dead people matters more than life for living ones. I'll be waiting for your answer. You have until Thursday. Thursday, not 48 hours, less than that. And he'd reduced the timeline just to prove he could. Maya walked toward the subway, Volkov's words echoing in her mind. Justice for dead people versus life for living ones. As if it were that simple. As if moral calculus could be reduced to a utilitarian equation. But maybe it could. Maybe that's all morality ever was. Choosing who suffers less, who survives, who gets sacrificed. Sarah or the victims' families. Her father or her conscience. Silence or truth. The Q train arrived. Maya got on. And as the subway plunged into darkness beneath the city, she pulled out her phone and looked at the banking information one more time. $10 million? The price of 4 lives. The cost of silence. The weight of knowledge that would never, ever go away. Mount Sinai Hospital at night was a different world. Fluorescent-lit corridors that smelled of antiseptic and desperation. Nurses moving with practiced efficiency past rooms where people fought private battles against mortality. Maya signed in at the visitor's desk, got her badge, and took the elevator to the oncology ward on the 7th floor. Each beep of the elevator felt like a countdown. Each floor a decision deferred. Room 714, her father's temporary home. She stood outside the door for a full minute before entering. Through the small window she could see him. Chen Wei, 62 years old, looking 80. The cancer had eaten him from the inside out, left him skeletal and gray. But he was sitting up, alert. The new treatment pumping through his IV, bought with blood money from a murderer. Maya pushed open the door. "Maya!" Her mother stood immediately, pulling her into a fierce hug. "You came. Your father's been asking about you all day." Sujin Chen was 58 but looked older, aged by months of watching her husband die by degrees. But tonight there was something different in her face. Hope. Fragile and tentative, but there. "Hi, Dad." Maya approached the bed, took his hand. It felt like paper, dry and thin. "My girl." His voice was hoarse, damaged by intubation during the last emergency. "Your mother told me. Someone paid the bills. Was it you? Did you do something foolish?" Maya forced a smile. "Would I do something foolish? You're my daughter, of course you would." He squeezed her hand with what little strength he had. "But whoever paid whatever you did, thank you. The doctors say this new treatment," he gestured to the IV bag, "it could give me months, maybe a year. I'm going to see you graduate. See you find someone. See you be happy." The words hit like bullets. A year. Bought with Volkov's money. Bought with silence about 4 murders. Her father's life balanced against the truth. "Tell me about work," he said. "The fancy restaurant. Are they treating you well?" "It's fine. Good tips. Interesting people." Interesting. That was one word for it. "Sujin, get Maya some tea from the cafeteria. She looks exhausted." Her father waited until her mother left, a transparent excuse to talk privately, then fixed Maya with eyes that were still sharp, despite his body's betrayal. "Now tell me what really happened. And don't lie. I'm dying, but I'm not stupid." Maya sat in the chair beside his bed. The room was small, intimate, decorated with cards from friends and family. Get well wishes from people who thought conventional medicine and prayer would be enough. They hadn't been. Not until Mikhail Volkov decided to play God. "I translated something," she said carefully. "For someone wealthy. They paid well." "How well?" "Very well." "And this translation, it was legal?" Maya hesitated too long. Her father sighed. "Maya, listen to me. I have maybe a year if this treatment works. Maybe less if it doesn't. I don't want to spend that year knowing my daughter compromised herself to save me. Do you understand? I'm old, I've lived. I'm old. But you," his voice cracked. "You have your whole life. Don't poison it for my sake. Dad, whatever you did, whatever you agreed to, you can still walk away. Money isn't worth your soul. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. I've lived 62 years, Maya. I've made compromises. Small ones at first. Working for bosses I didn't respect. Staying silent when I should have spoken up, prioritizing comfort over principle. And each compromise made the next one easier. That's how good people become complicit in bad things. Not through one dramatic choice, but through 1,000 small ones." He pulled her hand closer. "Whatever you're involved in, walk away. Let me die if that's the price. I'd rather leave you with integrity than with guilt." The door opened. Sujin returned with tea in a styrofoam cup, her timing impeccable. She looked between them, sensing the tension. "What did I miss?" "Nothing, Mom. Just Dad being philosophical. He does that when he's tired." Sujin kissed her husband's forehead. "You should rest. Maya can visit again tomorrow." But Maya wouldn't visit tomorrow. Couldn't. The sight of her father, alive, alert, hopeful, was unbearable. Every moment with him was a reminder of what Volkov's money had bought, what her silence was purchasing. She left Mount Sinai at 9 p.m. and walked. No destination, just movement. Through the Upper East Side with its elegant townhouses, past Central Park where homeless people slept on benches despite the November cold, down into Midtown where Broadway blazed with tourists and false happiness. Her phone buzzed periodically. Text from her mother asking if she got home okay. A missed call from Dennis. 3 messages from a number she didn't recognize. At midnight, she found herself in Times Square. Screens everywhere. Advertisements screaming in every language. People packed shoulder to shoulder despite the late hour. She stood in the center of it all, surrounded by light and noise and humanity, feeling utterly alone. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Miss Chen. Volkov's voice, calm and measured. I thought you might appreciate some perspective. Meet me at Celestine in 20 minutes. Come through the service entrance and come alone. It's midnight. The restaurant is closed. For customers, not for us, 20 minutes. He hung up. Maya should have ignored it. Should have gone home, locked her door, pretended this was all a nightmare she could wake up from. Instead, she walked to Celestine. 23 minutes because the subway was delayed. The service entrance was unlocked. Inside, the restaurant was dark except for a single light over table 7. Volkov sat there alone. No wine, no food. Just an old man in an empty restaurant waiting. You visited your father, he said as Maya approached. How is he? Better, thanks to you. No, thanks to yourself. I merely provided the means. You made the choice. He gestured to the seat across from him. Sit, please, I want to tell you something. Maya sat because her legs were tired and her soul was exhausted. In 1987, Volkov began. When I killed those 4 people, I was 32 years old. Younger than you'd think to have that much blood on my hands. But I'd been training for it my whole life. My father, my grandfather. Violence was our family business. And I was good at it. Efficient. I never lost sleep over Victor or Alexei. They stole from me. They died. Simple mathematics. But Tatiana was different. Tatiana was my wife, the mother of my child. And she was going to destroy everything. Not just me, but dozens of families who depended on the organization I'd built. Jobs, protection, structure. All of it would have collapsed if she'd testified. So, I made a choice. One life versus many. Utilitarian ethics, they call it in philosophy classes. The greatest good for the greatest number. And you killed your best friend to cover it up. Dmitri talked. He would have eventually told someone what happened. More deaths would have followed. Revenge killings, turf wars. So yes, I killed him. One more death to prevent dozens. Volkov leaned forward. Here's what I learned, Miss Chen. There is no such thing as clean hands. Every choice we make has consequences. Every action creates ripples. You can try to minimize harm, try to choose the least bad option, but you can't avoid harm entirely. That's the human condition. So you're saying I should take your money? Stay silent? Let 4 murders go unpunished because it's the least bad option? I'm saying you should recognize that you're already complicit. The moment you translated that document, the moment you accepted my dinner invitation, the moment you visited Sarah's school, you became part of this story. You can't extract yourself. You can only choose what role you want to play. Maya felt sick. What role do you want me to play? The survivor. The person who makes hard choices and lives with them. The person who understands that justice is a luxury, and sometimes survival requires compromise. He slid a tablet across the table. I want to show you something. The screen showed a video. Grainy security camera footage from 1987. A warehouse. Maya recognized it from the photograph. The same location where that happy family picture had been taken. But this video showed what came after. Victor and Alexei, bound to chairs. Tatiana standing in front of them, pleading. A younger Volkov, speaking words the camera couldn't capture. Then shots. Quick, professional. Victor slumped. Alexei jerked once and went still. Tatiana screaming, trying to run. Another shot. She fell. Maya couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. I kept this, Volkov said softly, because I needed to remember, needed proof that it happened, that I did it, that I'm not a good man hiding behind expensive suits and charity donations. I'm a killer who got away with it. He paused the video on Tatiana's face, frozen in her final moment. And here's the thing, Miss Chen. Nobody missed them. Victor and Alexei had no family, orphans raised by the state. Tatiana's parents were dead. Dmitri was estranged from his relatives. 4 people vanished and the world kept spinning. Does that make their deaths less tragic? Or does it make them irrelevant? Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand what you're protecting by staying silent. Not abstract principles, not legal technicalities, actual violence, actual death. I want you to see what I am, what I've always been, so you can make an informed choice. He closed the tablet. The confession protects Sarah, but it also protects me from consequences I deserve. You have to decide which matters more, shielding an innocent woman from devastating truth, or ensuring a guilty man doesn't die in peace. Maya stared at him. You want me to turn you in? I want you to choose freely, without illusions, without rationalizations. He stood, buttoned his jacket. You have until Thursday noon. Transfer the money and stay silent, or go to the police and destroy my daughter's life. Either way, I'll respect your decision. Because unlike most people, Miss Chen, you're actually grappling with the moral weight of your choice. That's rare. Precious even. He walked toward the kitchen, then stopped. One more thing. The video you just watched? It's backed up in 7 locations. If anything happens to me unexpectedly, a mysterious accident, sudden illness beyond my cancer, anything suspicious, those videos get released to the media, sent to police, published online. Sarah's face will be on every news channel, identified as the daughter of a murderer. So if you're thinking of taking a shortcut, of making this problem disappear through violence or exposure, know that you'll hurt her worse than any confession ever could. He disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Maya alone in the dark restaurant with a tablet showing a paused image of a woman's final moment. She sat there for an hour, maybe more. Time felt slippery, unreliable. Eventually, she forced herself to stand, to walk out the service entrance into the cold November night. Her apartment was exactly as she'd left it. Small, shabby, suffocating. The banking information sat on her desk. The photograph of young Sarah smiled from beside it. 2 pieces of paper that represented 2 different futures. Maya picked up her phone and scrolled through her contacts. Stopped on Jennifer Kim's number. Hovered over the call button. But instead of calling, she opened her laptop and started researching. Viktor Fedorov, Alexei Rudin, Tatiana Volkova, Dmitry Sokolov. Did they have families? Had anyone reported them missing? Were there cold cases, unsolved disappearances? She found nothing on Viktor or Alexei. Volkov had been right. Orphans with no connections. But Tatiana had a sister. Older, still alive. Living in Queens, actually. Irina Petrova, 68 years old. A retired seamstress who'd spent decades wondering what happened to her younger sister. And Dmitry had a son. Estranged, yes, but alive. Yuri Sokolov, living in Brighton Beach, running a small grocery store. He'd been 12 when his father disappeared. 4 people dead. 2 families still wondering. Still carrying the weight of not knowing. Maya stared at the screen until her eyes burned. Then she picked up her phone and made a call. Not to Jennifer Kim, not to the police. To the one person who might understand the impossible choice she faced. Dennis answered on the 3rd ring, his voice thick with sleep. Maya? It's 3 a.m. Are you okay? No, she said. I'm not okay. And I need to tell you everything. She did. All of it. The confession, the money, the video, Sarah, the families of the victims. Dennis listened without interrupting, and when she finished, he was silent for so long she thought he'd hung up. Come to my place, he said finally. Right now. Don't think, just come. I'll make coffee and we'll figure this out together. You can't carry this alone anymore. Dennis, I'm texting you my address. Get in a cab. I'll pay when you get here. Just come. The text appeared. An address in Astoria. Maya grabbed her coat, her bag with the photograph and banking information, and left her apartment like it was on fire. Maybe it was. Maybe everything was burning and she just couldn't see the flames yet. The cab ride took 20 minutes. Dennis lived in a modest apartment above a Greek restaurant, the kind of place where the landlord probably hadn't raised rent in a decade. He was waiting at the door in sweatpants and a Columbia hoodie, his face creased with worry. Come in. Sit. Tell me what you need. What she needed was someone to tell her what to do, to take the choice away, to make the decision so she didn't have to. But Dennis couldn't do that. Nobody could. Thursday, Maya whispered. I have until Thursday noon. Then we have, Dennis checked his phone, 34 hours. Time to make a plan. Dennis's apartment smelled like coffee and old books. He'd moved around the cramped living room, clearing space on a coffee table cluttered with theater playbills and unpaid bills, making room for the documents Maya had brought. The photograph of young Sarah, the banking information, the business card from Jennifer Kim, evidence of an impossible choice laid out like tarot cards predicting an uncertain future. Okay, Dennis said, handing Maya a mug of coffee strong enough to strip paint. Let's approach this logically. Forget emotions for a second. Just facts. Maya wrapped her hands around the mug, drawing warmth from the ceramic. Outside the window, Astoria was still dark, the city holding its breath in that strange hour between night and morning, when everything felt suspended. Fact 1. Dennis continued, pulling out a notepad. He was the kind of person who still wrote things down by hand. Volkov is dying. 6 months maximum. If you do nothing, the problem solves itself. Except the confession still exists, and Sarah still doesn't know. Fact 2. If you go to the police, you destroy Sarah's life. Maybe you get justice for 4 people who died almost 40 years ago, but you definitely ruin one person who's alive right now. And fact 3, Maya added bitterly, if I take the money and stay quiet, I'm an accomplice. I'm helping a murderer die in peace. I'm choosing money over morality. Dennis tapped his pen against the notepad. Is it, though, choosing money over morality? Or are you choosing to protect an innocent woman from devastating trauma? Because those aren't the same thing. Don't do that. Don't make it sound noble. I'm not trying to make anything sound anyway. I'm trying to help you see that this isn't a simple choice between good and evil. It's a choice between different kinds of harm. He sat back. Maya, I've worked at Celestine for 8 years. I've seen people like Volkov come through those doors. People with power and money and blood on their hands. You know what I've learned? The world doesn't run on justice. It runs on compromise, on people making hard choices and living with the consequences. So you think I should take the money? I think, Dennis paused, choosing his words carefully. I think you should consider what actually changes if you go to the police. Volkov dies in prison instead of at home. Does that matter to him? He's dying either way. The 4 people he killed stay dead. Their families get answers maybe, but answers don't bring people back. And Sarah loses everything. Her peace, her privacy, her children's innocence. So what's actually gained? Maya stared into her coffee. Justice. Justice. Dennis said the word like he was tasting something bitter. Okay, let's talk about justice. Victor and Alexei were thieves. Not innocent people, not saints. They stole from dangerous men and paid the price. Is that justice or just consequences? That doesn't make it okay to execute them. No, it doesn't. But it contextualizes it. They weren't random victims. They made choices that led to their deaths. He flipped to a new page in his notepad. Tatiana was going to testify. Was going to destroy an organization that provided income for hundreds of families. I'm not saying she deserved to die. Nobody deserves that. But her choice would have had consequences too. Violence begets violence. If she'd testified, if the organization had collapsed, how many people would have died in the chaos? How many families would have lost their income, turned to worse crimes, ended up dead or in prison? You're defending him. I'm contextualizing him. There's a difference. Dennis leaned forward. Maya, I'm not saying Volkov is a good man. He's a monster. But he's a monster who built something that provided stability in its own twisted way. And the question you're facing isn't, is he guilty? He obviously is. The question is, what good does exposing him do now? And I honestly don't know the answer. Maya set down her coffee. Her hands were shaking. Dmitri had a son, Yuri. He's still alive, still in Brooklyn. He spent his entire life wondering what happened to his father. And if you tell him the truth, if you show him the confession, the video, does that give him peace or just transfer the pain? Does knowing his father died begging for mercy make things better? He deserves to know. Maybe. Or maybe some truths are more destructive than ignorance. Dennis rubbed his eyes. Look, I'm not trying to talk you out of going to the police. If that's what you need to do to live with yourself, do it. I'll support you. Jennifer will help you. But I want you to go into that decision with open eyes, understanding that you're not choosing between right and wrong. You're choosing who suffers, Sarah and her kids, or you and your conscience. The words hung in the air like smoke. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten, dawn creeping over Queens. How many hours left? 30? 28? Maya's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Your father slept through the night for the first time in months. The treatment is working. Thank God. Thank God. Or thank Mikhail Volkov. I need to talk to someone, Maya said suddenly. Someone who knew the victims. Someone who can tell me if exposing the truth is worth destroying Sarah's life. Dennis frowned. Who? Irina Petrova, Tatiana's sister. She lives in Queens. Maya, do you think that's wise? She's been waiting 40 years for answers. If you talk to her, tell her what you know. You're making the decision for yourself. You won't be able to walk away. Good. I don't want to walk away. I want to know if the truth matters, if justice matters. And the only way to know is to ask someone who's been living with the absence of both. Dennis looked like he wanted to argue, but instead he just nodded. Okay, let's find her address. It took 20 minutes of searching, but they found it. Irina Petrova lived in a rent-controlled apartment in Elmhurst, not far from the hospital where Maya's father was being treated. The irony wasn't lost on her. 2 lives intersecting, one saved by blood money, one destroyed by blood violence. At 6 a.m., as the city truly woke, Dennis called a car. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You're not doing this alone. His voice was firm, brooking no argument. Whatever happens, whatever you decide, you need a witness. Someone who can say they were there, that you tried to do the right thing. The drive to Elmhurst was quiet. Morning traffic was building, the city shaking off sleep. Maya watched the neighborhoods change through the window, from Astoria's Greek restaurants to Jackson Heights' South Asian markets, to Elmhurst's Chinese groceries and Latin American bakeries. New York, in all its chaotic diversity, everyone trying to survive, to build lives, to forget or escape whatever they'd left behind. Irina's building was old, pre-war, the kind of place that had probably been beautiful once. Now it was just worn, held together by rent control and the stubbornness of longtime residents who refused to be priced out. The intercom was broken. They walked up 4 flights of stairs, the carpet threadbare, the walls needing paint. Apartment 4B. Maya knocked before she could change her mind. Shuffling footsteps. A voice, accented and cautious. Who is it? Ms. Petrova. My name is Maya Chen. I have information about your sister. About Tatiana. Silence. Then the sound of multiple locks being undone. The door opened on a chain and an elderly woman's face appeared in the gap. She had Tatiana's bone structure, the same delicate features Maya had seen in the photograph, but worn down by age and sorrow. Who are you? Irina demanded. How do you know my sister's name? I'm a translator. I was hired to translate a document, a confession, about what happened to Tatiana in 1987. The door closed. For a moment, Maya thought she'd blown it, that Irina wouldn't let them in. Then the chain rattled and the door swung open fully. Come in, quickly. The apartment was small but immaculate. Religious icons on the walls, photographs everywhere, a life documented in frozen moments. Irina gestured them to a couch covered in plastic. She sat across from them in a chair that had probably been in the same spot for decades, her hands twisted together in her lap. Tell me, she said. Tell me everything. Maya did. She told Irina about the confession, about Volkov, about the murders. She didn't mention Sarah, couldn't bring herself to say that Tatiana's daughter had survived, was alive, was living a normal life. Not yet. Irina listened without interrupting, her face growing harder with each detail. When Maya finished, the old woman stood and walked to a shelf, pulled down a photo album. She opened it to a page showing 2 young women, arms around each other, smiling. This was Tatiana, my baby sister. She was 28 when she disappeared. Beautiful, smart, so full of life. Irina's finger traced the photograph. She married that monster because she thought he would protect her, protect us. Our parents were dead, we had nothing. He offered security, we didn't know what he really was. Did you suspect? Of course I suspected. But what could I do? Go to the police? Tell them my sister married a mobster and now she's gone? They didn't care. Russian immigrants, organized crime, they wrote it off. Told me she probably ran away, started a new life. But I knew. I always knew he killed her. I'm sorry, Maya whispered. Sorry. Irina laughed. A harsh sound. Everyone is always sorry. Sorry doesn't bring back the dead. Sorry doesn't give me 40 years of my life back. Sorry is what people say when they're powerless to actually help. She closed the album. You said you have a confession, written proof that he killed her. Can you get him arrested? Can you make him pay? Maya glanced at Dennis, then back to Irina. It's complicated. The confession exists, but there are consequences. If I go to the police, other people get hurt. Innocent people. Who? Who is more important than justice for my sister? And there it was. The question Maya had been avoiding. She took a breath and told Irina about Sarah, about the daughter who survived, who didn't know, whose life would be destroyed by the truth. Irina's face went through a transformation. Shock, then something like hunger, then a grief so profound it was painful to witness. Tatiana had a baby? She had a daughter? Yes, she's alive. She's a teacher. She has children of her own. She thinks her father died when she was young. She has no idea what he really was. I want to meet her. I want to see my niece. That's not, if you contact her, if she learns the truth, then she learns the truth. Irina's voice rose. You think protecting her from reality is a kindness? It's not. It's a prison. She's living a lie, built on her mother's murder. She deserves to know. I deserve to know her. Dennis spoke for the first time. Ms. Petrova, with respect, what does Sarah gain from knowing? She loses her peace, her identity, her children's innocence. In exchange for what? A relationship with an aunt she never knew existed? Membership in a tragedy that happened before she could remember? In exchange for truth, Irina said fiercely, for knowing who she really is, for honoring her mother's memory instead of living in ignorance. Maya felt something crack inside her chest, because Irina was right and wrong, both at the same time. If I go to the police, Maya said slowly, Volkov gets arrested. Maybe. Probably not. He's dying. The evidence is complicated. But let's say he does. He dies in prison instead of at home. The confession becomes public. Sarah's name gets released. Her face on the news. Her children bullied at school. Her husband maybe leaves. Her job gone. Her entire life destroyed. Is that justice for Tatiana? Is that what she would have wanted for her daughter? Irina's hands trembled. Tatiana would have wanted her daughter to know she was loved, that her mother died trying to protect her, not abandoning her. But Sarah already thinks her mother is dead, already grieved that loss. Learning the truth doesn't bring Tatiana back. It just adds new trauma to old pain. You came here to ask me what to do, Irina said, to get my blessing to stay silent, to let that monster die in peace. But I can't give you that, I won't. 40 years I've waited. 40 years of not knowing, of wondering if somehow it was my fault, if I could have saved her. And now you tell me you have proof, you have evidence, and you're going to bury it because the truth is inconvenient? Maya felt tears on her face. I'm going to bury it because the truth destroys an innocent woman, because Sarah doesn't deserve to pay for her father's sins, and Tatiana didn't deserve to die, but she did. And you're asking me to accept that her murder goes unpunished because it's tidier that way, because it's easier. It's not easier. Maya's voice broke. Nothing about this is easy, but I have to choose who suffers. Sarah or my conscience, her life or my morality. And I don't know which choice I can live with. Irina stood, walked to the window overlooking Elmhurst. The morning light made her look even older, more fragile. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, exhausted. When Tatiana disappeared, I promised myself that if I ever learned what happened, I would make sure everyone knew, that I would shout the truth from rooftops, that her death would matter. She turned to face Maya. But I was younger then, angrier. Now I'm just tired. Tired of carrying this weight. Tired of wondering. And if you're telling me the truth brings more pain than peace, then maybe silence is its own kind of mercy. Are you saying? I'm saying I don't want to destroy my niece's life to ease my own pain. I'm saying that maybe, for once, protecting the living matters more than avenging the dead. Irina's voice hardened. But I want to meet her. Someday. When she's ready. When it won't destroy her. Will you promise me that? Will you promise that when the time is right, when that monster is dead and buried, you'll find a way to tell her she has an aunt who loved her mother? Who would have loved her? Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Then go. Do what you need to do. Take the blood money. Save your father. Stay silent. But remember, Irina's eyes were fierce. Remember that every day you stay silent, you're choosing who matters. You're playing God, and God's judgments are heavy. They left Irina's apartment in silence. Dennis didn't speak until they were back in the car, heading toward Manhattan. That was harder than I expected. She gave me permission, Maya said numbly. She told me to stay silent, so why do I feel worse? Because she didn't give you permission. She just told you she was too tired to fight for justice anymore. There's a difference. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but she knew who it was. Thursday noon. I'll be at Celestine. Bring your decision. 16 hours. That's all she had left. What are you going to do? Dennis asked. Maya looked out the window at the city rolling past. Millions of people, each carrying their own secrets, their own compromises, their own heavy choices. Her father was somewhere in that mass. sleeping peacefully for the first time in months, bought health pumping through his veins. Sarah was somewhere too, probably making breakfast for her kids, preparing lesson plans, living a normal life built on lies. And Maya sat in the middle holding the weight of 4 deaths and one impossible choice. "I don't know," she whispered. "God help me, I still don't know." But she had 16 hours to decide, 16 hours to choose between the living and the dead, between mercy and justice, between silence and truth. 16 hours to become whatever person she was going to be for the rest of her life. The car pulled up outside her apartment building. Maya got out, thanked Dennis for everything, and climbed the stairs to her 4th-floor walk-up. The banking information was still on her desk. The photograph of Sarah still smiled up at her, and beside them both, her laptop, where she could open a browser and search for the nearest police station. 2 paths, 2 futures. Maya sat down at her desk and opened her laptop, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she knew what she was going to do. Not because it was right or wrong, not because it was just or merciful, but because it was the only choice she could live with. The only decision that, when she looked at herself in the mirror 20 years from now, wouldn't make her hate the person staring back. She began to type,